would you define what a church family is? And how important is it to belong to one? It requires a sacrifice of time, and depending on how involved you are, it also takes energy. What does it say in the Bible about having relationships within the believing community? These questions have an impact on your marriage. In this video, Larry talks about his journey of faith and the role that church fellowships have had in our marriage. What has kept you in fellowship?
Well, over the 32 years being in church life, and I have taken my knocks, and I have been in leadership positions, a lot. Many times I was tempted to say, go jump in the lake, the lot of you. If I'm being honest, which is why we're here, is to be honest. First of all, the reason why I've never chucked in the towel is because when I first met God, He said, don't do that.
Yeah.
He said, stay in fellowship.
You don't want to argue with Him.
Yeah, now in my mind, that shuts all arguments off. If God says do it, you do it. That's the end of the story. Now, but there still is an affective and emotive part of our natures that has to be dealt with. I mean, I can't go into church like with sour lemons and, well, I'm doing this only because God says to, because that's not with a good heart. Also, it says in the Bible, there's a little place in Hebrews where it says, okay, don't forsake the gathering of the brethren. But wait a minute, that's just a little footnote. From Genesis all the way to Revelation is fellowship.
We read this morning about Moses taking the people into the desert, and they were arguing big time because they were hungry.
If anybody had a reason to chuck it in, he did.
And was that fellowship? Well, actually, yes, it is. Because fellowship is not just based on a building, it's based on relationships with people.
No, it's based on collaboration,
church.
Yeah, so that, I have noticed people who have gone their own way, done this Lone Ranger type Christianity. And to be honest with you, it doesn't work. And what really, really hits me in the heart is that I watch their love grow cold. And they're not even aware of it. Little by little, they still think, well, I'm doing the same thing. I'm praying. I didn't read my Bible. Well, yeah, but there's an ingredient in there. God expects us to knock the corners off of each other. There's one scripture, a very obscure scripture in 1 Corinthians, I believe it's 11 or 12, I think it's 11, where he says, well, there has to be factions, there has to be tensions between you, because that way the ones who are the called ones to leadership are going to manifest themselves. That made sense to me.
If you think about it, you go into school and you do your coursework, and then you're expected to pass an exam. It's tension.
Yeah, that's
so your exam, and if you pass it or not, qualifies you for the next stage of your journey. And when we encounter difficulties, it's not necessarily a bad thing, and it's not, woe is me, I've done something wrong, or somebody's against me. It's simply, am I ready for the next phase of my journey?
If you do forsake the gathering of the brethren, that should be a warning signal.
Yeah.
That should be a red button. Alarm, alarm, something's not right. Yeah. There's something that you need to deal with in your life. Because God calls us to fellowship, we have to stay in fellowship. We have to band together for better or for worse. It's kind of like a marriage. Judy and I are not always smiling at each other. We're not always, with the silly in love look on our faces. We get in some pretty good ones sometimes. We are committed to each other. We're not going to leave each other. Well, that's the way it is with our fellowship with other believers.
God is greater, our God is stronger, God, you are higher than any other.
Larry has got some strong viewpoints on the matter of church and its importance in our lives. Next week, we'll be interviewing Vincent, who has just got married. We wanted to know how his life has changed and what his life with Min Min is like now that he's turned in his bachelor card. God bless and bye for now.